Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone here this evening. We do have an agenda before us. We'll move to agenda item number 2 to consider that agenda. Are there any changes tonight to the posted agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. Then we'll move to agenda item number 3, which is to consider the approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting that was held on October 9th, 2018, as well as a work session that the council held on October 16th. So the council does have the minutes of both of those meetings. Are there any corrections?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Jim to approve the minutes of both of those meetings as they have been presented. We'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 4 is Michigan Road Superior Road Reconstruction Project. This is the continuation of the public hearing. And then, so I'll entertain a motion on the continuation of the public hearing. This was tabled, right? So we need to.
Was continued until this date and time.
So parliamentary procedure here, do we need to take an action to open the continued public hearing?
Yes. Right, open the continued hearing, correct.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by David. Discussion? If not, we'll go to voice vote on this. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So we're in the continued public hearing. Sharon, I'll turn first to you. I know there's been considerable discussion on this matter, as well as by the council, as well as by the Ways and Means Committee, and I believe there's a recommendation. Go ahead.
So at the last council meeting, the council approved a project appraisal being completed or conducted. We have not gotten the results of this project appraisal at this time. So what our recommendation, and this is after consultation with the city attorney, would be that we would want to continue this public hearing into a future date and time. And I'll let the city attorney recommend a specific time period.
Thank you, Sharon. Dennis?
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Mayor and Council. In order to continue, we do need a specific date and time. And I think we need to allow government to work at government pace on this matter. There's no need to rush to judgment on this matter. So I know it's a busy time of the year anyway, as we go through November into December with just year-end budgeting issues here. You know, it's a holiday time period. I would recommend that we continue it into March of next year. March 26th would be the 4th Tuesday, assuming we continue to have meetings on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday. March 26th, that allows time for Ways and Means, that allows time to discuss, look at our policy, review other policies. So my recommendation to continue it till Tuesday, March 26th, 2019.
I'll make a motion on that recommendation.
I'll second it.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Craig. Discussion on the motion to continue the public hearing from today's date until March 26, 2019.
There would be the understanding that the city staff would work with Ways and Means to come up with some recommendations as to what to do about the special assessment policy.
At the very least, it may even be a work session required for the council. Right.
Okay, thank you.
Other discussion on the motion? Kyle, do you have the motion? We'll have a voice vote on this motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 5 is to consider the award of the bid for pickup of garbage and trash at various city locations. You do have the recommendation based on the quotations that were received.
I move the recommendation.
I'll second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by John. Discussion?
The only question I have is, the tax for 17%, I'm assuming that's a waste or a garbage tax that the city is responsible for?
Kyle, can you address that? Kyle Box, City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The 17% is a solid waste management tax from the Department of Revenue, and that is the municipal tax rate that we are charged.
Thank you. Other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda item number 6. Agenda item number 6 is to consider the award of the proposal for professional services for hazardous materials inspection and reporting on various city buildings. Jason, do you have this?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Jason Anderson, Assistant City Engineer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The purpose for this inspection is to identify any asbestos-containing materials in the remaining buildings on Block 11 and to investigate for possible petroleum contamination on the site. Some preliminary research indicates that we've done some investigation in this area already. We'll offer that information to the contractor if hired. We did receive 3 proposals on October 17th for the professional services for hazardous materials inspection. Because the low proposal was significantly lower than the other proposals, Glenn Olson did reach out to verify that the contractor was aware of what they were being asked to do and that they do comply with all MPCA requirements for this type of inspection. As for the petroleum investigation, because the leak sites are closed with the MPCA, we would recommend that we not further investigate that at this time, and we address that at a later date if necessary. So staff would recommend awarding the professional services contract to Advanced Health, Safety, and Security of Ballatin in the amount of $1,000.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Questions on this?
The question I have is I know we're looking at tearing down a couple buildings, but the hotel, if we find asbestos or they find asbestos in that building, are we going to be held responsible to remove that before we sell that purchase if that project comes together?
Sure. This investigation does not actually consider the hotel next to City Hall. This is just the Block 11 site.
Okay, I saw that.
And we already have prior investigation of asbestos at the City Hall site. I don't believe at the hotel site next to it.
And that we can negotiate too. If we actually sell the property, we can negotiate that in the terms.
It was on the map, that's why I pulled up there.
But certainly is a very competitive and reasonable bid.
Yes, it is.
For that work.
I just want to make sure that they're going to use all the work that's been done before and not say, well, this is
Yeah, we will.
7 years out of date,
Yeah.
we need to redo it because it might have changed.
We'll only do that if we're required to do that, but we'll utilize what we have.
Thanks, Jason.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Motion by Steve, seconded by David. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes, 1 note, 1 abstention. Agenda item number 7. Agenda item number 7 is consider the awarded proposal for a manhole relining project for the wastewater treatment facility. Bob, do you have this? Bob Van Moore, wastewater superintendent, unless Jason, you were good.
No, I can turn it over to Bob. That's
Okay.
fine.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Highway 23 trunk sewer runs basically from the bus garages on Highway 23 all the way up to the north end of town by the lift station by the new high school. That was installed in 1993. We're seeing extreme corrosion of the manholes out there, actually deteriorating 50% through the manholes. We're up to the rebar. The gaskets are coming out of the barrel sections and a lot of infiltration coming in all those manholes. The worst section is probably the last third or fourth of the trunk line sewer project. We did 2 this summer as an emergency repair. They had a very difficult time getting them sealed up. It's time to attack them now, otherwise we're going to end up having to, you know, unable to line them and probably have to replace them. Replacing these manholes would be extreme. They're anywhere from 20 to 30 feet deep right along the trunk highway. It'd be tens of thousands of dollars per manhole at that rate. The 2 that we've done turned out excellent. There was some pictures attached there. I don't know if you've seen those in the packet. It's something that we need to keep addressing. It's a very large project. I'm looking at doing 6 more this fall yet, early winter, and then I would continue on budgeting so many manholes a year in the future to try catch up to these things before they're completely gone. The piping is all PVC, and that's in excellent shape. The PVC doesn't get attacked, so the manholes are the weak part of it. So we're looking at permission to get some done this fall, and then I will carry over and probably do another half dozen or so, depending on the quotes next year also.
Okay. Questions for Bob? David?
Bob, were you surprised by the extent of the corrosion compared to what the industry standard is?
You know, we've kind of suspected this when we installed them, and we had it's actually a bitumastic lining on the inside, but that's even getting attacked. We've been seeing them getting worse and worse, you know, throughout the years.
Do we have confidence that the new installations will last longer?
The new installation, it's a 3-part coating, and they guarantee the leak-free and structural of the manhole for 10 years. That's unheard of in a lining community. Nobody really does that. They've got installations in Florida that are over 25 years old. They're still holding up fine. Life expectancy is 50+ years on these.
Thank you.
Yep.
And it's all done from the inside?
Yep. They just go in and water blast them, and then we would suck all the debris off the wall that they wash down, and then they come in and then they start sealing and coating them. It usually takes about, if things are going good, 1 day per manhole, they can get them done. So.
Greg?
The hydrogen sulfide, is that the problem in the manholes? Or?
Hydrogen sulfide is what's attacking them, yep.
And is there a way that we can, I mean, I suppose once it's coated, it doesn't matter, but is there a way we can put an acid or some other treatment in there to stop the generation of H2S before it gets to the?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of experimenting and checking on systems that you could add chemical to the wastewater stream to prevent hydrogen sulfide. It'd be extremely expensive as an annual maintenance to add the chemical to correct this. So.
This picks up both sides of 23 too, right? I mean, it's grabbing a lot of that south community development.
Yes. This actually picks up Westwood Acres, a lot of the new Etros addition and areas too.
Sure.
It's about 1/3 of our wastewater flow comes through Highway 23.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob.
I was wondering if you could explain that. We have the sewer lines that are PVC, and they have the gas in them? Or?
Yes, hydrogen sulfide doesn't attack PVC.
But the gas is inside the pipes?
Yes, yeah. As sewage sits there, it will get, it actually goes to septic, and it actually forms the hydrogen sulfide gas as it's sitting in there. So.
And the gas comes out of the PVC pipes?
Nope. It actually enters into the manholes, and the manholes come all the way to the surface, and that's what's being attacked is the manholes.
Okay. So we have the manholes, and then we have the sewer lines that are underneath there. And I guess it's confusing here that if the sewer lines are causing the gas and stuff, and they're inside the pipes, how do they get to the manholes then?
It's the sewage in the pipes that is actually going septic and turning, and then it actually creates that hydrogen sulfide, which is a gas which releases, and that's a gas which will come up to the.
It'll come right through the pipes then?
Nope. The pipes connect manhole to manhole with the pipes. So it's a manhole, and then you got a PVC pipe then to the next manhole. The manholes are in their design so we can get in there and clean the sections of pipe. And
It's all open
There's
air.
an opening there.
It's open air.
Yeah,
The
Okay,
manholes,
I
it's-
didn't
yeah,
realize there
they're
was
anywhere
open
from-
air into the,
Yep.
so then with the manholes, that there can be leakage into the manholes to go into the sewage lines then, or?
There could. We have sealed castings on them all, so.
Okay, so
that's-
it's not like water, regular
No,
water
no,
can,
no.
rainwater
And
can
this-
go down
This
in.
actually helps because when you get your concrete manhole coming to the surface, you put your casting on there with the lid in it. This spray lining actually goes up through the casting and will seal that seam
Okay.
from the casting.
But
So the
to-
gas can't escape then.
To add to that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, the corrosion was such that on some booted connections, you were having some groundwater infiltrating into the manholes, correct?
Yep.
So
When
the
pipe
corrosion
comes
is causing more infiltration of groundwater into our wastewater stream.
Gas will still come out. It'll come out into the environment because there's holes in the manhole covers to lift them
And
off.
that gas actually carries on out
Yeah.
to the treatment plant. We fight it out at the treatment plant also.
Yeah.
So, anytime you have force mains, it's long runs of sanitary
So,
pipes. That's
Bob, not to get too far into chemistry, because I agree this needs to be done, but, there's a significant amount of lime at the water treatment plant. If that was, some of that was deposited into the sanitary sewers, would that buffer the hydrogen sulfide?
It'd be extremely hard to get the right mix.
Okay.
We've tried peroxide, we've tried several different commercial hydrogen sulfide reducing compounds, and the metering system, we looked at potentially doing some kind of a lime slurry, but it would be a pretty substantial undertaking, and then try to regulate it, and that lime sludge would like to settle out, and then you got more debris in the lines.
And then we'd have to remove that at the treatment plant. It would increase the amount of solids that we have to deal with in the
Yep.
sludge, and there's a lot of other issues.
Yep.
And the lime is an alkali, so it would probably eat away at the PVC.
Yeah, I don't think lime would hurt the PVC itself, but it's just the
sludge
consistency
it
of
up.
that lime sludge is,
Yeah.
it's a cake, so, you'd have to.
Okay.
It's a pretty common problem in wastewater collection. It's, when we have long runs, you can either try to keep it aerated or oxygenated, or you have to treat it to stop facilitating the sulfide generators, and it's just about impossible.
Other questions?
Reading their contract here, and I know that myself and Dr. Meister do not like change orders. Is there any way that they can get a little more specific? It says, price includes up to $1,000 of grout per structure. Additional grouting costs $1,000 per 5-gallon bucket. Can, as they look at these, can they get that more solid? Because like I said, we're not big fans of change orders.
And I've talked to them about that. They have to protect themselves somehow. The two that they did this summer, they did for basically nothing because they lost so much money adding the additional grout to it. They're thinking that they've learned a lot on those two they did this summer, so I think they're going to get around. I can see some of that grout being used. Some are worse than the others, but
Well, and I get that. So then I guess the second question is if all of a sudden they get into the rest of them, they don't use that much grout. They want an extra charge, but there's nothing to say, okay, we didn't use that much grout, so we're going to give you a discount.
I specifically asked him, I says, and that's fine, maybe one manhole will take a lot of grout, the next one hardly take any, and he says, we're going to average that out. He says, we're not going to charge you.
You don't
because
suspect
it's
there'll
in
be,
the contract.
and I'm fine if the contract. I just want to see a $10,000 grout
Yeah.
change order account.
There's another side to that, Jim, and I agree with that, but by the same token, if we pin them in a corner and we're not there watching them, they'll hold to the bid of the grout, and if it takes more grout, we just won't get it. They'll make it look good, and, I want to make sure that we get these manholes sealed up right.
Well, I agree with that, but, in the same sense, if they're not there watching, they may not use grout. It's one of those that I'd like to do a bid, here's what it's going to cost you. I looked at these 55 manholes. This is what they've done, 2 of them. Here's what the cost is. You guys shouldn't be dealing with change orders.
I just, if I can weigh in, I think that it is kind of, to speak to why you would want it on the side, if we don't get it on the side, they'll build it into their number and we'll pay for it whether they use it or not. The grouting is just to stop the groundwater from coming in so they can actually do this lining. So they're only going to use what they need to use to stop the water. Yep.
Is this grout special? Because $1,000 per 5-gallon bucket is pretty pricey.
It's pretty special. It works in flowing water. It will stop flowing water.
You inject it through the concrete walls and it gets in behind it, reacts with the water and actually swells like a urethane type grout. Then once it's sealed, then they can put the coating on and the coating will actually stop the.
It's flow stop.
Yep.
And then I know it's customary when we do work with the public sector that they have retainage and they're requesting no retainage.
Yep. Yeah, and he said right out, if they can't seal a manhole, they're not gonna bill us for it. And if there's gonna be any extensive overrun of grout, they will certainly contact and discuss that with us. So we could pull the plug on a bad manhole and just say, we're gonna have to dig this one and replace it if it came down to that.
Taken out of this.
Yep.
So this bid could be fluid, that's what I mean, so we may have a little fluid bid as we get here next summer so we know what to expect.
Yep, and like I said,
No play on words with the fluid.
Unintended.
yeah.
Thank you, Bob.
Bob, you said you're going to do 6 manholes this year and several manholes each year. Are you talking like 6 every year for so many years? Or?
I would like to try budget like $75,000 a year for manhole rehab on this, and that's what, depending on the depth of them, it's about $450 per vertical foot is just a good estimate for these manholes. They get shallower as we get farther west, so we're going to get through a lot of the deeper ones this fall. Then maybe by next year we would be through a lot of more deeper ones.
Is there any kind of quantity discount if you did more?
Yeah, I kind of asked him that, and he says no. That's what they got into them.
So it doesn't pay to do
once they're out here and mowed out. That's one of the costs. But if they're out here to do 6, and if they can get things going and get 1 a day, that's pretty good for them. So I don't think it would matter if we. I was considering trying to make a $200,000 project out of this and get them all done, but I don't know. We'll address that down the road after we get these done and see how it goes. Maybe next year's, and maybe that's what it would come to, is a larger project and just finish them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? If not, you have the recommendation.
I move the recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by David. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Agenda item number 8. Agenda item number 8 is to consider the consent agenda. We'll bring the items up on the screen that are on the consent agenda. They include consider the approval of temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce for an event November 15, 2018. Consider the approval of temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce for an event December 3rd, 2018. Outdoor public fireworks display also calling for a hearing on the proposed assessment for ice and snow removal and for weed elimination. Consider the application for an exempt permit for the Marshall Assembly of God for April 30th, 2019 event. Consider the approval of a tobacco license transfer, and then finally, consider the approval of the bills and the project payments. Is there any item on the consent agenda any member of the council wants to remove for purposes of separate discussion?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Move then to agenda item number 16. Agenda item number 16, we have an agreement to consider with United Community Action Partnership. Sharon?
Mr. Mayor and Council, we do have the UCAP Transportation Director, Kathleen Amick, present, who can present the update and the subsequent agreements for consideration.
Thank you, Sharon. Welcome, Kathleen.
Hello, Mayor, council members. Thank you for allowing me to attend today, and I'm here to ask that you support the 2019 service agreement for public transportation, the community transit program in the city of Marshall. Within this agreement, we This is probably the first year that I've ever presented not asking for any kind of support or local share. So I'm coming to you just to mainly give you an update today. Since it's been a while since I've been here, appreciate all the support that we've had from the City of Marshall. However, I do have to mention that we are still working on a project in 2019 with the City of Marshall regarding placements and updating bus stop shelters, passenger shelters, and bus stops for ADA compliancy. So we have 3 currently that we're working with in the City of Marshall. One is on 4th and Lion stop. The other one is at the Birch Street stop just before the campus, and the other one is at South 4th. So just we did receive a grant from the Minnesota Department of Transportation to move forward with that in 2019 for the approximate amount of $75,000. So just kind of wanted to remind you of that. The other thing is I've shared with you in your packet some update statistics. One of the pages says United Community Action Partnership Transportation Program. That kind of shares the information for our entire program. Currently, we are operating in 8 counties. We just finalized the merger with Pipestone County at the beginning of this year. So not only do we provide an extensive amount of transportation here in the City of Marshall, but we also extend our services out in the counties, and everybody is eligible to be able to ride throughout the 8 counties. We did have an increase in trips again in 2017, approximately 40,000 more trips. We also increased our hours by 10,000, and yet we had a decrease in mileage. So that's kind of a good thing for transportation, because it shows that people are kind of staying more local, and we're becoming more efficient by putting more people going across the distances that we have to cover. We did approximately 21,500 trips, volunteer driver trips throughout our area also, and the volunteer driver program compensates the bus program by taking people where the buses, we don't have enough buses available to go. So currently our state and federal grants cover about 68% of our budget. For 2019, we just received a budget of from MnDOT or MnDOT funding for about approximately $2.9 million for our program. So that's encouraging. Couple of projects that we've been working on is a 5-year transit plan. MnDOT is requiring all transit systems, public transit systems across the state of Minnesota to do a 5-year transit plan. They are funding this. They have also hired consultants for us to work with, just because we are very busy running operations. We have very little time working on a plan. So we are working with consultants, and we're hoping that is completed by next grant application year in 2020. So we also just went through a rebranding, as you can see on the thank you, the logo on the top right. Sorry, it's been a long day. The top right corner is the new community transit logo. We wanted to go with the universal public T, because we are getting a lot of people from outstate, and they come in and they're not quite sure if we are public transit or not. So the whole many of the systems across the state are going back to that, so they can recognize public transit when they see it. We are working on automated fare collection. I'll cover that a little bit too in a few moments. And then also, we just recently finished putting in a facility surveillance system out at the transit facility, and we're also putting them in the other facilities across the other counties. So, as for Marshall, again, we had an increase in ridership. We have 7 active buses and 3 backup buses that we run through the city of Marshall every single day. You can see a lot of the other breakdowns similar to what you see for our entire program. The other thing I included in is the projects coming up, and basically the projects for the city of Marshall are bus replacements. So in 2020, we are scheduled to have 2 bus replacements. 2021, just 1. Again in 2022, 2. 2023, 1, and 2024, 1. So for the next 5 years, I've shared that with you. Then the next go round of buses won't be until the next time we have 2 buses will be in 2026. So I'll stop right there for any questions before I move on to the new fare policy and study.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Questions the council has for Kathleen?
Okay, I'll keep going then.
I was just wondering, it shows grant funds and reserve. Do you use much reserves in meeting your budgets, or?
We haven't so far. I think we did use the reserves for the surveillance and for 1 fleet vehicle this year, just because we needed, I've got staff that are spread out all over now, and it was kind of an urgency to do that. We are being somewhat required by MnDOT that we keep our full local share for the following year on hand, plus approximately 3 to 5% of our budget in our reserves.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, just to move forward, one of the other projects that we've been working on since we've been doing mergers, we've done brought in 4 counties in the last 4 years into our program, and at the beginning of the year we had 3 different fare structures through the entire service area. And so we have, with the help of advisory committee members, we put together a little task force, and I shared with you the Community Transit of United Community Action Partnership proposal for future fare structure. Basically what we did was we got together and we looked at what our fare structures were across the service area, and the other thing I must point out is we haven't increased our fares since 1997 when we merged with the city of Marshall. So we've had the same, $2 bus fare in the cities, and then you go up from there. But what we did was, as a committee, we looked at what we had and realized it was too big of a job for just our fare collection committee, our advisory members. So we came up with a proposal as to what we want to do moving forward. The first task was to bring our fares together. Try not to increase it for anybody, just to kind of combine them so that we're all under one fare structure across our region, and then go from there. We want to be able to then analyze it at that point in time, do a study, make sure that we're covering our costs with our fares, because this, we have the same agreement with our counties as we do with the city of Marshall, where we try to make sure that our fares cover our local operating expenses. So the first task was to come up with a new fare structure for 2019 by just combining what we had currently in the 3 different fares. The only difference that the residents or the riders in the city of Marshall will see is that we included a $2.50 same-day ride cost. So that did increase by 50 cents. So typically, you call in for a ride. It doesn't matter when you call in. You can call in 10 days before you need the ride, or you can call in the same day you need a ride. And right now, that fare is at $2. Because we need to maintain our efficiency, and we can do that best by knowing what trips we have prior to the day before, so we can create routes and schedule more effectively. We want to try to maintain an incentive for people to call ahead of time instead of the same day. because it does, you know, when we have to start shifting things around the same day, it is a lot more work. So the incentive is that people call prior to the day before their ride by 4:30, and they can still get the two, but same day would be $2.50. And so that's what passengers will see as far as the change goes. Otherwise, we stay at, for children aged 3 to 12, they get to ride for $1 if they're accompanied by an adult. And then children 2 and under ride free, as always, if they're accompanied by adult. And then our red route and our blue route, we stay at $1. Every time you get on the bus, you pay $1. And that is also SMSU also helps subsidize those routes. The other change that people in the city will see is we have currently have an $80 monthly ride pass. And people can buy that and they can ride unlimited throughout the whole month. Well, what we did include is we're adding in for 2019 a $70 ride pass if you stay in the city, because that $80 ride pass can go anywhere throughout our service area. Whereas if you purchase the $70 ride pass, there again, there's your discount. So that kind of offsets that $2.50 that we have to increase. So that's what we're trying to maintain, is more of a level playing field for all of our passengers across our service area. So, so that's what I shared with you, is the new 2019 fare policy. And so then moving on to that is once we, the residents will also be seeing different fare medias, such as tokens and things like that. But we've had an outcry for many years to get automated as far as fare collection. Currently, we're not able to accept credit cards or debit cards at this point in time, and sometimes we can't track. We can track where we've sold the media, but we can't track what they're using it for or when they're using it. So that's another piece. So so we incorporated in this proposal not only to move forward with a fare study, but also move forward with fare collection technology. And I have been working with MnDOT on that, as you can see what the approximate pricing might be. And that would be the kind of the local share possibly needed, but when you divide that amongst eight counties, it might not be all that much. And I've been working with MnDOT, and they have kind of set aside some funding for me to work with. It's been a verbal, close to $200,000. I don't have it in writing yet, but we are working towards that. So it's a good partnership with them. So with that, I just wanted to ask for your support to keep moving forward. And if there's any other questions or concerns that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Lots of good information. Questions for Kathleen?
Do you have much for requests for rural travel from people outside Marshall?
Yes, yes. We do a lot of trips throughout Lyon County, and I think last year we did a little over 10,000 rides outside of the city of Marshall, in and out. A lot of times it's between Tracy and Marshall, or Minneota and Marshall. So.
Related to that question, the monthly pass, is that going to affect many people from the city of Marshall that are going outside the city, do you think? Or?
No.
Okay.
Most everybody that buys the monthly pass stay within the city, and really there isn't that many. Basically, in order to get your money's worth out of that, you have to ride at least twice a day, Monday through Friday, and then you get it free on weekends if you continue to ride on weekends. So.
In your literature talks about a 50-mile limit in one place and a 45-mile limit. Is there a limit on how far they can travel outside the city, or it just goes 33 to 45 miles at a $5 rate? So I'm wondering if are you allowed to go more than the 45?
No, our buses we really can't. Like 45 miles is to Redwood Falls, so that ends our service area somewhat. So yes, we kind of gauge that throughout our, how far we can get in our service area with our buses, and a lot of times then it's the next bus down the line or whatever, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That might change though, now that we're more regional, so. You never
Thank
know.
you.
So related to the agreement, are there any questions about the proposed agreement?
I move approval of the transportation agreement between the City of Marshall and United Community Action.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Steve, to approve the agreement as it is proposed for transportation provided by UCAP. Discussion on that motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And a motion does pass with no abstention of Councilmember D. Kramer because you serve on the UCAP board. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
support.
Agenda item number 17. Agenda item number 17 is Marshall Fire Department Assistance Firefighters Grant. Sharon?
Mr. Mayor and Council, the fire chief became aware of a grant opportunity through FEMA called the Assistance to Firefighter Grant. The grant application period is a short time frame. It was opened on September 24th, and the final application is due on Friday, October 26th. So the fire department, specifically the fire chief and Preston Stensrud, have been busily working on the application, and Preston is present to present some further information on what the grant will provide.
Thanks, Sharon. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here on behalf of the Fire Department to ask for the Council's support as we look to finish the application process for this FEMA grant. Where we're at currently in the CIP for 2019, we have 52 air bottles because we have 26 packs, so that gives a backup to each SCBA. 12 of them expired in 2018 already that are out of service, so we are short numbers, and the rest will expire early next year. So grant or not, we're going to have to buy the air bottles to be NFPA compliant. As part of this grant, we hope to apply to get all new technology air bottles, the packs that you wear, and then the face masks. With the newest technology, there's tells you the temperatures. You can get Bluetooth so you can talk to each other. The technology has changed immensely over the 15 years that we've had the equipment we have now. With that, I mean, it's a lengthy application process. We're hoping to finish it up tonight or tomorrow. I did see, we have an excess of 225,000. We did get a estimate. It's real close to 250. The city's portion of the match would be 5%, so I think that's 12,500. If we would get it, we don't know. I don't know if it's an all or none, or maybe we'd get 50% of it. But either way, we are going to have to stay up to compliance. We will have to purchase the equipment down the road. If we'd get the grant, obviously that would be less burden on the tax citizens of Marshall. So with that, I would answer questions. Otherwise, we're just looking for a letter of support from the council to move forward and include with the application.
Okay. Thank you, Preston. Any questions?
I move offering the letter of support to for the submittal of the AFG grant application.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Preston, I would say thank you to you and the chief for seeking out that opportunity. The motion does pass. Agenda item number 18. Consider the removal of city special assessments. You're going to handle this. So with us tonight from the finance department, Annette Storm. Annette?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you today is a resolution to remove city assessments from our current assessment roll. This recommendation did come from our auditors. They've been kind of saying it for some time now, and we actually found some time to actually clean up to get them off our books. A little bit of background, prior to 2016, any assessments that came from our engineering department were added to our assessment rolls. I think some of the idea behind why we included city property was to track the improvements that were made to the various properties throughout the city. Since 2016, we no longer do this unless we have intention on selling the property and to recover some of those costs. So there is a memo that I did draft for your guys' information to show the different attachments. I kind of broke them out into different sections so I kind of could keep them a little bit more straight. So I think at this point I'll just kind of open it up for any questions you guys have.
Thank you, Annette. Any questions?
With regard to attachment 3, that's the industrial development property.
Yes.
And was the idea that we would have special assessments and then whoever bought the property would pay the special assessments?
Correct.
And now we're saying that if they buy the property, there wouldn't be any special assessments on them. And so with the idea that if we sold them the property would take into consideration any special assessments that were paid on the property, or is the city planning on giving the property away free, or what's our intentions?
So these are properties that have been sold.
These are the remaining ones that the city still currently owns. Past practice was any of the land out there, the purchase agreements pretty much waived the assessments that were currently on the property because we wouldn't sell them to recoup the money that went into developing the land.
So the ones that we sold in the past, were they basically given away plus the assessments, or did we receive any compensation for the lots?
Generally not, no. I would say no compensation, or it was at a very reduced price. I know that special assessments were waived, the water area charges were waived, and then prices were reduced. There was something paid, gosh.
But that was covered by the business subsidy.
Yeah, that's all part of the business subsidy, yes.
So if we waived the assessments here, the city could still sell the property at a certain cost and recover part of the amount that's being assessed.
Correct.
That was assessed, if we
Correct.
wanted to.
Yep, and these assessments are not certified to the county, so there are no record anywhere if anyone did any background checks on any of the property unless they came specifically to the city to ask what amount went into developing that land. So they are not recorded anywhere.
So this really is, per the auditor's recommendation, is
Correct, because currently they are sitting on our books as a receivable, special assessment receivable, and we're just going to pay ourselves essentially. So that's kind of why we're doing this cleanup, to true up what our true receivable balance is.
So it is truly a housekeeping cleanup.
Correct.
And it's my understanding that the policy in the future will be not to proceed in this manner in the future, so we wouldn't have to clean up assessments in the future.
Yep, yes.
Some of these dated back to the 1970s, didn't they?
Yes. Yep.
I want to thank the staff for going to the trouble of cleaning up these items. You know, it's important that we clean up our financial statements, and if these items don't belong on our financial statements, they should be removed. And so thank you for taking the time to do it, and I'm glad you're going about this, and I appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you.
Was that a motion?
I was just going to ask that.
Because I'd second it if it was.
Yeah, that's a motion, yeah.
Motion by Glenn and seconded by Craig. Discussion on the motion to remove the city special assessments. There's no discussion. We'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda item number 19. Agenda item number 19, to consider the annual service agreement with Hacc Incorporated for the phosphorus feed for the wastewater treatment facility. Once again, Bob Van Moore is here, from Superintendent of the Wastewater Treatment Facility.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is when we started getting into our effluent phosphorus treatment, we purchased this online phosphorus analyzer. That's a very complicated, intricate machine. We've had the service contract annually since we've owned it. They come out 4 times a year, actually clean it all, check it out, calibrate it. All the parts are included in the contract. If it breaks down, we're still covered with the maintenance of the thing. So it's very, very well worth the while. It's been a very valuable piece of equipment for us, saving us tens of thousands of dollars on ferric chloride per year by being able to reduce the phosphorus addition when we don't need it, or the ferric chloride addition to reduce the phosphorus. So just more of a housekeeping service contract I wanted to bring forward to get approval for.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Any questions?
You said they come out 4 times a year from, is it Colorado?
No, they have service technicians. This is a national company.
Oh, okay.
Hacc is a very
That's
large
a deal.
corporation.
Bring from Colorado.
Yeah, no.
It's a road trip.
Yeah, Greg, you could do that.
Yeah, I could do that.
I would make a motion we approve it.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Craig. Discussion? No discussion, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Thank you, Bob. Agenda item number 20. Agenda item number 20 is consider the additional services to the professional services agreement with Bolton and Mink relating to the MPDES permit reissuance. Jason, you want to start with this, and then while Bob's coming up?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is just another, call it kind of a maintenance item, and I can let Bob take over, but it's for their permitting.
Thank you. There again, this is our permit is a 5-year NPDES permit for our effluent discharge. It is due next spring to expire. MPCA requires a 6-month prior application, so very lengthy, very complicated permit renewal application. I did talk with Bolton and Mink. According to this, it's just not submitting the application. This will carry through the $10,000 max hourly will carry through until the permit is renewed, shy of any major things where they would tie us up for years of engineering services, like for a chloride limit or something like that. But any minor discrepancies or further information for MPCA would be included in this not to exceed number.
So Bob, not so much for the council, but for those that may be watching on TV, you want to just briefly describe MPDES, what that is?
MPDES stands for National Pollutant Discharge and Elimination System. Any major or any city that discharges wastewater into the public waters needs one. It's actually an EPA permit, which is managed by the MPCA. Some of the large industries that discharge also need these too. So it sets all of our limits of what we can discharge to the public waters.
And this one is especially specific to the city of Marshall because our discharge goes directly to the Redwood River.
Yep. Like I said, just about every city would have an NPDES discharge permit, but it varies by where they're discharging and what they're discharging. So.
Mr. Mayor, that permit is even more complicated because we're in the Minnesota River Basin, which is a high focus watershed for the upper Mississippi Basin. So it's got a cascade effect. And I actually checked in with Bob on this earlier and then also talked to some of our permit engineering staff at the agency. This is a very complicated permit, and the fact that Bolton and Mink are doing this and including potential resubmittals or additional submittals to get us to an approved permit is significant, because the requirement is 6 months before the permit expires, we're required to make that application. And if we submit within that basically 150 days plus, we're good, but it can go on with requests for additional information, and that can turn into Pandora's box. So having them agree to follow through with that, as complicated as our permit is really pretty, and communities a lot smaller than us that have less complicated permits still use an engineering firm to do it. That's what the agency has come to. So one of the things we're doing as staff is trying to make sure that our management knows the additional problems that these complex permit applications put on municipalities, so that they understand that cities are paying more than just the permit application fee. There's a lot of behind the scenes investment going into these also. And I'll stop there.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Other questions for Bob? Not, you have the recommendation.
I'll move the recommendation.
Motion by John, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Jim. Discussion on the motion?
My only question is, maybe Bob or Mr. Schaefer can answer it, is, again, these applications are getting so complicated. The more complex an application, the more opportunity for failure to make mistakes and miss things. We talked about it before, and it's a gravity issue. We can't change it here, but it seems like the government is just getting onerous with applications and making businesses out of applications. I mean, Bolton Mink is getting $10,000. It should be a one-page thing. You've done it before.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents.
Okay. I think everyone agrees with you, Steve. Other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to vote. Bob, I'd like you to stay up. Bob, just stay up here for a second. And that motion does pass with one abstention. Bob, you've been up here several times this evening. I think this
Does he get an attendance award?
Yeah. This is the last agenda item you're officially up here for, but I was wondering, do you want to give a quick update on how the sludge application is going? I know we purchased a piece of equipment to help out this fall.
Yes, the sludge application is on hold until we get the crops out. So they've got a majority of the crops out on some of the acres that we're doing. So we're hoping another week or so things will be dried up. It has to be dry for us to get in there, because we can't go around wet spots like a combine can. We have to go up and then back and up and back in order to get our application to work. So we're kind of crossing our fingers the weather holds and it stays dry so we can get out and get that done. So
Bob, because we're knifing it, we don't have a calendar restriction, right? We can go past December 1st.
yes, we can apply year-round, actually.
Okay, perfect.
Yep, as long as the setbacks are met, we're fine year-round, so.
Perfect.
But prior to
The worst would
ground
happen is we would have to surface apply it with our ag chem and our semis if the ground froze up. So, different set of rules.
Thank you. We'll move then to agenda item number 21. Agenda item number 21, consider the authorization for the request to purchase playground equipment for Legion Field. Preston Stendrud, Park Superintendent.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have kind of a purchase proposition that was proposed for 2019 originally. However, due to some funding made available through a playground company, I feel that now would be a good time to purchase and get more advanced equipment for our dollars that we're putting into it. With that being said, we did discuss it at the council work session last Tuesday. Had the application ready to go, just waiting for the okay. Got it Wednesday night, I believe, right away from the rep from the company. We were the first in his area. So he was all in on approving us. The grant basically has different tiers that it would meet. So I told him, what our budget was. So with the recommendation that's in your packet, we would get a 40% discount of the $72,000, I think it is. And that's how the wording for the funding was, because we had to be under the $50,000 with shipping, and shipping doesn't get included in the funding discount. So with that being said, the one that you see on the screen here would be the proposed within budget. However, and I talked to John and Craig, even as late yesterday and today, I was still working with him, you know, if the, what if this, then what, and stuff. So I have another scenario. I'm fine with either purchase. It would go to not much of a larger playground, but it would go to taller. It would have roofs over it for shade, and then it's a custom themed for a lake. It's for a lake, but I figured with being at Legion Field by the river, kind of goes together. So the additional cost for that playground, and I have a picture here that you guys can just look at. The total cost of that one, if we were to buy the playground as is at normal price, was $99,321. We would get the equipment for $49,955 versus the one on the screen. Just the equipment's $43,000. So we're basically getting $28,000 more of equipment for about $6,000 additional cost. Our grand total would be $55,763.99 with shipping. I'm still going to talk to a couple local shipping companies in town, see if there's any possibility that we could get that number cut down a little bit. And it would definitely not exceed this, but maybe we'll get it for a better price. So with that, I guess I just kind of open it up to questions. I know 50,000 is what we were hoping for, but we still have time to change it since we haven't got an approved budget. So I don't really want to say we're over budget, but we're over what I was intending, but we're getting more bang for the buck essentially. So.
Two quick questions, and the installation would be by your staff?
Yep.
So there's a value in that also.
Yeah, a playground company, if they come out, I think they charge about $3,500 to $4,000 a day, $3,500 to $4,000 a day for a certified playground installer. And if, you know, a playground like this, you're probably talking 5 days. So if you'd add that in there, really money doesn't go far on playgrounds, essentially. I mean, $100,000 sounds like a lot, but it doesn't go that.
So do we have a certified installer?
I'm not certified, but that's all right because we have all the rule books and code stuff. So. And
there's always the opportunity for some contributions that could be made by organizations or individuals.
Like I kind of said, for partnering, and we can figure that out over the winter if we'd move forward with either. And like I said, I'm fine with either. Both of them would be an improvement to where we're at. It's just the bigger one or the more expensive one adds shade and more of a theme structure. And realistically, it's there for 20, 25 years. I think the one now is early 90s that it's been in. The slides are broke and cracked and stuff like that. So it's just in need of replacement. So, but I'm fine with either, whichever way. They do need the check by Halloween in order to give us their funding. So.
Do you have a spot in your budget that you're maybe have $5,000? I mean, where are we coming up with the extra $5,000? I'm getting at. Is there? That's maybe a Carla question.
I have a couple of. I could take it out of next year's budget, or I could take it out of this year's budget even, because we do have $7,500 for playground components, just to add to other playgrounds, little pieces.
That has not been used.
Correct.
So it wouldn't affect, we wouldn't be over, I mean, we don't want to go over on the budget.
Right.
But if we can pull it from one account to another, then we're not really going over.
Right, or maybe some park development fees or something that we have in account, something like that. So.
And then hopefully getting some sponsorship.
The volunteer trees you're very good at doing, by the way. We thank you for that. You can maybe get it all paid for.
We're talking about the budget, not going over the budget, but the $47,628, you plan on using reserve funds for that, but so that's not actually in the budget as far as your department, is it?
Correct. For this year, we have it in the CIP for next year. So, right. However, Neth and Carla kind of just said they'll figure that part out.
so that part is not in the budget.
Correct. For this year.
Right. So, and a couple of questions here. One is, so if we were to replace playground equipment, you feel that the most pressing need is Legion Field Park versus the other parks?
Correct.
And
just to interject here, you do have a rotation that you're going through, and you have addressed
the last one, if we would choose to do it, that hasn't been done in the last 10, 11 years, would be at the old softball complex. And that one could either just get taken out and go away, or we could put something small there if our intent is to keep hosting anything there. So, but otherwise, all of them will be replaced in the last 10 years.
And it talks about a grant award, and it's from Game Time. So it actually isn't, instead of really like a grant, it's more of a discounted price is what they're doing, reducing the price.
Normally, when we would do like a competitive bid, their state contract holder, they would give us 10 to 15% off depending on the price. On the proposal there that I have, just that I recommended to stay under the 50,000, they're giving us a 40% discount.
Right.
If we go to the one there, they're going to a 50% discount because we hit the 90,000 threshold.
Sure.
So
And-
it's
and-
just,
They're discounting the price because they want to sell the product, and you can only use the money on their particular product.
correct. And if we have to pay for it by October 31st, otherwise it's gone and you're back to full price minus 10%.
With regard to Game Time, the company that sells us, that is manufacturing the product, do we have other experience with their playground equipment?
Yep, we have four Game Time structures now, and then 3 from another company. So, but we're kind of evenly divided. We've had good working relationship with them, and they've held up good too, cover their warranty and stuff good. So.
And discounts are a way to sell the product and so forth and reduce the price, and sometimes people feel like they jack up the price and then give you a discount, and really you're still paying a pretty good price. So with the discount, you still feel that if we go with the $47,628, that's a really good price for what we're getting then?
Yeah, it's by far, if you start looking and comparing other stuff, and when we bid size-wise for structures and how many play components are on there, it would far exceed. If we just had 50 and we were going to pay a state contract, we'd probably get a third of the playground by the time we pay shipping and everything. So.
Other questions?
I said, Carla, can you come up and kind of explain how you're going to transfer funding from one year to another? I'm kind of foggy on that. So we take it out in next year's budget.
As Preston indicated, it's on our CIP plan, so we have so much levied, and so we'll take it out of our reserves, and we'll still levy for that, so we'll replenish it back in.
Into the reserves.
And back into the reserves.
So basically, we're paying for it this year out of next year's. It's not necessarily a good habit to get into, but if the price is right, it's not necessarily bad either.
Correct.
So my question comes down to the pictures you just sent around. I looked at the age, 5 to 12. They look really cool, both of them. Is there any studies? Do we ever do things on age groups, like ask the elementary kids, what playground equipment do you like to play on? Because it looks really cool for us adults who are writing the check. But if you buy it and the kids go out and say, this sucks. So when you say the roof or the roof on it, I automatically think, I see them at Independence Park a lot. It can be 100 degrees out there. Kids don't care about a roof. I think about the roof as a place for a wasp nest to be built, or the swallows to come in, and then we're maintaining that. So I just wonder what the kids like, and that may be too difficult to do a group on that, but on one side, it would be really cool to figure out what the kids like. So we're building it for the kids, because none of us taxpayers are going to be using it. I mean, Jim might, but.
Ouch. So we haven't actually done a study, but it's kind of like anything. There's trends. It used to be the swings and the slide, and now it's kind of the big thing is climbing of sort, like cables, which that has a climbing net on it. But it also incorporates the traditional stuff. As far as knowing what they like, I always try, and when we pick them, I always try and make sure it's something that we don't have somewhere else. And that's kind of when I start looking, we already have 3/4 of that playground somewhere else, just in a different color, so I don't want anything to do with it.
Well, on the more cost-effective one, the cheaper one, I noticed there was an accelerator on it. My 18-year-old kid loves that accelerator out at by Carr Estates, that park up there.
Yeah.
Every high school kid went up there, and they would spin each other as fast as they could to make them puke. I mean, they really did. Junior high kids and senior high kids are going out there and going to town on it.
So the this is off subject to this one, but the new playground that we're working on today, we could finally get back out there at the ball fields. has a merry-go-round climbing net that is like 14 feet tall and holds like 32 kids at once or something like that.
It's a body chucker.
It's huge. It has a 20-yard concrete footing, so it's absolute. That single piece is like $25,000. So.
I know you mentioned roofs. We've done some playground equipment for different daycares, and there are requirements for them to have a roof for the kids to go someplace in shade. You know, when it is 100 degrees outside, 90 degrees.
Sure, but
kids, do we need to supply it? I think, you know, the cost difference isn't that much. I think having a roof up there for juniors sit under for a few minutes in the shade isn't a terrible idea. And it is a requirement with daycares and school, not necessarily schools, but with daycares and after-school programs.
But this is not a daycare. This is a public playground, and hopefully there's some parental supervision to mitigate heat stroke.
I agree that I always assume there's lack of parental. I mean, we got to assume there's lack of parental.
I was going to touch on that when you said the study. We don't do a study to know what they want, but we get a complaint on not having any shade at a playground 20 times a year, I bet. I mean, it's all the time. An email or a call, and we love the park. Why can't there be any shade or something? You know, Windstar or Patriot Park's a big one for that because the trees are young. Yeah. And I mean, that one does have a roof, but that's our #1 complaint out there: no shade, no shade. So I just thought, for that little added cost over 20 to 25 years.
Is the parent complaining on behalf of their child, or are they complaining on behalf of themselves?
I don't know.
In which case, these roofs on this would not help the parent.
Right. Both, maybe.
Gets them on the extent.
Yeah.
I can't remember by looking at the equipment, but the second option with the roof, that's not something that could be added on later on as a feature. It has to be ordered right away.
Yep, the poles are custom manufactured, and they either come with a closed top and there's no change in it. I suppose you could change it, but we're not going to start cutting the poles, or you order it as is. All the holes are pre-drilled in the right spot and everything, just like a big puzzle to put together. So.
Any other questions? Thank you, Preston, for your knowledge base, and you actually probably have a mini focus group at home. Okay, what's the wishes of the council?
I'd like to move the amended recommendation that Preston gave for the enhanced playground and move it up to the $55,000 and change piece to take advantage of the additional grant or discount. I guess discount, for lack of a better term.
Motion by Craig, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by John. Discussion?
I support the purchase of the playground equipment, but I'm not in support of the second option. I would support the first option, but not the second option.
With that being said, I do support the second option if you have, like you said, you have money to use it, and that this is something that comes out of next year. I mean, not to sound mean, but out of your budget for next year, that we don't play games with the budget, that, it's done, it's built, and we financially stick to that budget. And you said you had the $7,500, so it would come out of your budget. I'm one that I don't want to see this overspent on a budget, so.
So I'll stay at the 50, and then we'll work on partnerships, fundraisers, whatever that is, and then whatever we're short, I'll take out of my budget.
Yep,
if we're short any or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you have it in your budget, use it, or find somebody to ship it, or send Craig out to pick it up.
Well, I got some other options we'll talk about later too, with some other things coming down the pipe, so we'll figure it out. We can pinch and squeeze.
Other discussion on the motion?
I'm kind of with Councilmember Bearcole here. I'm all for it, and I think that the Cadillac version would be nice, but in times that are tough, I think the Ford Yukon or Ford Escape version is nice too. So
Ford might not like that they're viewed as.
Well, were you mentioned at the prior meeting that the fact that maybe the Legion Field Park is not one of the more widely used parks as compared to the other ones?
Yeah, I think the numbers are down strictly because the playground has seen its better life, and it's lost its spark per se. That, you put in something new, Freedom Park or Patriot Park, we put in that new playground out there, and I mean, the numbers instantly from when it's complete. There's kids waiting in line to go on it. Even the one at Liberty Park,
The fire truck at the band shell was a hot option.
Yep, there's kids that never came there, and they said, my kid's been watching that go up, and they've been waiting until you were done so they could go on it. So it's just, I think it kind of moves around, so. Not down because the park is less used or anything, just.
This is a park that's pretty much in the center of the city. It's got aquatic center.
The pool, 120 baseball games there a year, so.
Aquatic center and ball diamonds. This is a great place for it.
Yep.
Okay, other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote on this motion.
It would be $55,763.99. That's with shipping, but if I can figure something out, it won't exceed that. So.
And that motion does pass.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Preston. Agenda item number 22. Agenda item number 22, Michigan Road, Superior Road Reconstruction Project. We have a change order to consider with D&G Excavating. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. Change order number 1 includes the removal of a tree on Superior Road and additional cost for fill material that we hauled in to facilitate street access during the utility portion of the project. In addition, the contractor has also requested a 24-day time extension, moving the substantial completion date from October 19th to November 12th. Staff would recommend approval of the change order, resulting in a contract increase of $2,050 and a 24-day time extension.
Questions about this change order?
I have a question. When you drew up this plan, this tree was there.
Correct.
And I know Councilmember Meisters brought this up. Why was it not, how was it missed?
Our intention with this tree was to leave it in place. It's located very near a stormwater manhole that we had to tie our catch basin leads into. When we got into construction, it was kind of realized that it was going to be difficult to keep the tree with all the other utilities around the work that we're trying to negotiate our new facility through. Which we try not to add cost to the projects in design. We try to keep it simple, and then when we get into it, sometimes things change. So it was just difficult to work in the area with the tree there, so we allowed them to yank it to get our work done.
Did it make their work on easier then?
Well, sure.
So then wouldn't there be a cost basis? We just simplified the project for you, so now you're saving money off of your original bid.
I would argue that instead of it making it easier for them, it made it feasible for them. It made it more doable. It was abnormally difficult to do it with the tree there. That's what I would say.
Any other questions for Jason?
So these are two actions then, or are they one the change order and the one the extension, or what do we do?
I think it's, at least the way it is now, it's one motion. It would be up to the council if you want to separate the two, but it is set up as one motion.
I would like to separate the two, and I'd make a motion on the change order and then do the extension as a separate motion.
Which motion are you making?
The motion on the change order for the tree.
I believe he's moving to separate the two items.
Or make a move to separate the two items, two different.
I think we'd have to vote on it.
Yeah, so we don't need a motion to separate them. If you want to make a motion on
Just one of them.
I would like to make a motion just on the removal, the change order of $2,050 for.
To allow that change order is your motion?
No, I don't want to allow that change order. So
Well, then make it the other way then.
I'm making a motion that we do not allow the change order for the tree removal.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Steve. Discussion?
I agree with Councilmember Lozinski, Jason. If there's a tree there in the future, this is things where your experience has to prevail. If there's a tree in the way, it looks like it's going to be in the way, take it out. And if you want to keep the tree, then work with the contractor to do everything you can to keep the tree. But to come back and say, oops, now we need another $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, $1,000, doesn't matter what it is, to move a tree that was in the way, obviously from the beginning, that's just frustrating. Poor planning.
Jason, has the tree already been removed?
The tree has been removed. We had to remove the tree at that time to get the work completed, so we authorized it to be removed.
So it's already a done deal,
Yes,
right? And it was a decision by the staff to go ahead and remove the tree.
yes, it was.
And I appreciate the frustrations with change orders. On the other hand, there's things that you can see on paper that you can't really fully understand until you're in the project. And I think, this is one example. You mentioned the complexity of some of the utilities. I think Saratoga Street, those of us that saw that excavation there, about the number of things that were there that, were impossible to know because they weren't recorded before. They were put in 40 or 50 years ago. I guess I rely on the expertise of the staff because you're the ones that are out there. It's easy for us to maybe second guess something like, well, why wasn't this done? It was right there on paper. But until you're actually there and experiencing it, it would be like being involved in a surgery. If you're doing surgery on me, I shouldn't use a personalized example.
You can.
I'd want you to take care of something if you discovered something when you had me very vulnerable. So just an opinion.
Oh, and there was additional material that had to be put in also, so it's not just labor, it's material because of the voids that taking the obstruction out of the way to complete the project.
They are separate, these are separate items, the tree and the fill material, yep.
On that comment though, Bob, I would make the argument that technically in medicine, when we're doing surgery on something, unless we've talked to you about it before, it doesn't matter what I find, I can't take it out.
It was a bad analogy.
And I guess my point is it made their job easier by just getting out of the way. So at some point, as a city, it seems like we always pay the change order, but do we go back to the contractor and say, how much time did we save you by just getting it out of the way? And
Got to be removed and filled back in. So
yeah, their equipment that maybe took 4 hours total.
Oh, but the point that comes to play is when we do these projects, we always build in a contingency because there are things that are unknown and we need the project to continue. We could wait and have it come to a special meeting or to a regular meeting to approve that, but the project needs to move forward. And I agree with Mayor Byrne, we need to trust the staff that we have because that's their professional judgment and the decisions they make. And that, thank God, the city of Marshall has the luxury of having those staff on board that they can make those decisions.
And I agree with you on that, Craig. The unknown 60-foot tree is a pretty obvious piece of
Well, there's a difference between it being there and it being an obstruction or not an obstruction. And one of my previous lives, I worked buried utility construction, and I guess I can view that and
Okay, any other discussion?
Yeah, if there was a mistake made, it was our mistake, not the contractor's mistake. And they relied on our staff that they should go ahead and do it, and they did the work. They deserve to be paid. And if we wouldn't pay them, we wouldn't have a happy contractor, and they'd be a lot more careful if they did business with us in the future. But we made a commitment that we would pay for it, and we should pay for it.
Other discussion on the motion?
The only final comment that I have is when we're bidding these out, don't we bid that contingency? Built in a contingency for
when we get approval,
unbeknownst
yeah,
issues.
when we get approval from the council on the projects, you're usually approving the contract amount with 5% contingency, and we never get near 5% contingency. We're significantly tighter than that.
So this is within the contingency?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote on substitute motion number 2. That motion does not pass. I would entertain an alternate motion.
I'll move approval of the order as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by David, seconded by John. Does that also include the the contract extension?
Out of courtesy to my colleagues, I'll make it specific to the change order and reserve a separate vote for the extension.
That's your understanding?
So it'll just be the change orders then? Yes. What we're voting on right now. Yep.
So we've separated those two.
So you make that change on substitute number 3. So Kyle, just the correction on substitute number 3. Take out that last half of the sentence.
The 24-day extension.
It changed on mine.
Darn autofill.
That's updated on our agenda, so.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so everybody has the correct substitute motion number 3. Any other discussion on that motion?
Just for the record, I would have voted affirmative with Mr. Lozinski on the last one, but since the job has already been done and it falls within that 5% contingency, that's what swayed me.
Other discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. I would also now entertain a motion on the contract extension.
I would make that motion.
Motion by Jim.
Second.
Second by John. Discussion?
I just want to say, I appreciate being separated because I think the contract extension, the weather, that's pretty obvious. They have
can't
no
control
control over the weather.
What, but we had it on paper.
Other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes.
How'd you like to be an engineer at Disney World? Just because they can draw it on paper means you got to build it.
Architects do that all the time, Greg. It's just not.
That's the
engineers.
difference between an architect and an engineer.
So we'll move then to agenda item number 23. Agenda item number 23 is the, consider the application for an exempt permits for Southwest Minnesota University Foundation for an event January 15, 2019 and February 16, 2019 and February 23rd, 2019. Any questions about these applications?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion by John, seconded by Steve. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. We'll note the abstention. Agenda item number 24. Agenda item number 24, consider appointments to various boards and commissions. Earlier this evening, the council met in special session to interview applicants for different boards and commissions. I was not in attendance at that meeting due to a work conflict, so I'll pass this to President Pro Tem Sturrock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council met in unofficial session to interview applicants for city boards and commissions this afternoon. I think what's appropriate, Mayor, is we will pose these as recommendations. It would then be to you to formally nominate them, and then we would vote on those to confirm those nominations.
You can make the nomination.
Oh,
President Pro Tem
if that's appropriate, then
Yep.
okay. On behalf of our interview sessions, I'll nominate the following individuals. Brian West to serve a partial term on the Police Advisory Board. Carol Purrington to renew for a new full term on the Convention and Visitor Bureau Board. And Brady Karstens to fill an unexpired term on the Planning Commission.
Thank you for that recommendation. I'd entertain a motion to affirm.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Jim. Discussion?
We had a group of very good applicants that was really wonderful. They were all highly qualified. I was really impressed with every single one of them, and I'm just applauding their engagement with city activities.
Other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda item number 25. Agenda item number 25, Commission Board Liaison Reports. The Fire Relief Association did meet since we last met. The performance of the fund is doing well, and the Relief Association Board of Trustees is doing a nice job of managing that retirement fund. Regional Development Commission had their meeting since the last meeting at this time, and it was a typical board meeting. The activities that would relate to the city marshal would be the regional revolving loan fund as well as the transportation committee. I serve on both of those committees. Craig?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Merit Center Board meets next month, and I won't be able to attend that meeting for personal family conflict. In talking to Jasmine DeSmet, our coordinator out there, she has secured 2 Connex boxes, you know, the shipping containers, to be utilized. The intent is to utilize them in a connection for a burn house for live burning. They're in Willow River, Minnesota, so we're looking to secure some transportation. My intent is to try to encourage the Minnesota West CDL program to put their tractor to use with the hopefully secure flatbed trailer to move both of those at the same time from Willow River. If that doesn't work, I've got a couple other rabbits that I'm going to try to pull out of the hat, and I think we'll maybe make that same proposal to the Minnesota West CDL program to get some more road time for their students to see if they can't haul some playground equipment. So just a food for thought. If they want to participate and be a partner to the city, I think this would be a real good show forward. That agreement is, their new lease is going to be starting to negotiate, so I think this is a good way for them to kind of step forward with some more good faith. So that's my intent, is to put a little pressure on Minnesota West to see if we can't get some cooperation with that. And I'm sure they'll be at least willing to discuss it. There might be barriers that I don't know about, but I'll put it forward.
And you want to mention the groundbreaking this week?
Yeah, there's going to be a groundbreaking Thursday over the noon hour for the new, for the extension, for the completion of the driving track out there for the high-speed training and the skid pad. So pretty exciting to have all that taking place. So it'll be nice to have that go. Thank you.
Steve?
So Economic Development Authority met. We had a spirited discussion on the sale of some properties that ultimately resulted in the passage of the recommendation from Tara and the EDA board to sell properties out at one of the parkways. The updates also included the old Kmart building. There's still development going on in there. The second tenant in that area is almost to be named, as not quite yet. So we're getting a little frustrated with not having that, but that's nothing that Tara or the EDA can do. It's all Ashley Furniture. So they promise us it's coming soon.
Thank you, Steve.
And the Community Services Advisory Board met, but I went late at work and was unable to make it.
The Planning Commission met. They have a matter before them that they weren't ready yet to resolve. They thought they needed an additional meeting, and they'll be meeting later on that, and then sending the issue to the Legislative and Ordinance Committee, and then it'll be sent to the City Council at a later date. That's about it.
Councilman Meister gave a report on EDA, and the Utilities Commission met tonight at 4:30, and we were having the interviews with the candidates of these companies, so it was not able to come.
David?
The Convention and Visitors Bureau met last Wednesday, the 17th. We were very pleased with the work and the energy and the ability of the new CVB director, Lauren Deitz. Also had agreed to take up the practice of meeting, at least for the foreseeable future, on a monthly basis, and this came up during our interview discussions this afternoon as a positive step to have a board that's more engaged, more knowledgeable, and can make a larger contribution to the work. So we look forward to that.
Area Transit did not meet. The Adult Community Center did meet. I did not get the agenda in the mail until the day after the meeting, so I gotta miss that one. That is the U.S. Postal's fault, so I have nothing to report.
We'll move then to agenda item number
They mailed it in time.
26. Councilmember individual items. Jim, let's start with you.
The last week, I would like to commend our fire department. They did make our job to replace City Hall a little harder, but that's fine because they did their job. I think they had 4 fairly significant calls last week, and I just want to commend them on the jobs they did. So that is a positive. We have it also as we talk about our fire equipment doing oxygen tanks. I think the public needs to know that by having such a high-rated fire department, it does keep our homeowners insurance down. So as we spend money with the fire department, keep in mind that it does probably save more than what it costs us out of our levy dollars in homeowners insurance. Also, on Thursday again, our City Hall Building Committee is getting back together after a hiatus because we're changing not really changing plans up because the prospective investor in the hotel. So that is hopefully getting back on track, so we'll have that done before Jason retires.
Thank you.
David.
That sounds like a great timetable. Nothing otherwise, thank you.
John?
I just intended the wrap up anyway of the spirit of the community sculpture out at the Vera Plaza, and very nice plan out there, and glad to see that project wrapped up and looking that nice. So it's good.
Thank you, John. Greg?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Steve?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
And Glenn?
I have nothing.
We'll then move on to agenda item number 27, which is staff report. Sharon?
Mr. Mayor and Council, just a few items. One of the things that I've noticed in the last week, and you don't necessarily see it on building permit data that you get in your council packet, is some micro redevelopments of some businesses downtown. So example, on 3rd Street, there's 3 new businesses that have just opened or are soon to be opened this week. And so that's really good to see. And I'm familiar with a lot of communities that may be similar to Marshall that have maybe an interstate that goes near them and it looks robust, but when you get downtown, there's not much there. And I think that Marshall's downtown has some rebirth going on and some good development. So just want to point that out. Comment a little bit on EDA projects, and a follow-up to Councilman Meister. Government is slow, but this economic development is slow too, and business is business. So we understand that there's a process that they have to work through as far as agreements and financial analysis and so forth. But yeah, hopefully we can share some news, and we have been waiting on some potential developments, but can't really say much until they get a little further along. We've had some early discussions with Avera Marshall on security for their facilities, and one of the discussions that we haven't brought forward to council or personnel at this point is a discussion about their request to have additional security provided by our police department. We currently have an arrangement where they provide the city $80,000. I believe it was a 3-year contract. One of the proposals put forth by Avera is to provide another $80,000 for an additional security measures. And the benefit to the city is it would cover essentially a full-time police officer, and we would be able to meet their expectations in the contract with the service levels that they've requested, and also utilize them in other areas as well. So we're really gaining advantages in our scheduling, and I believe that the next discussions that will occur is incoming Chief Marshall will have some discussions with Avera, and hopefully we can bring forth a revised contract for consideration for the council starting in January 1 of 2019 is our anticipation. We'll have to see how we move forward on the hiring process. I do want to follow up a little bit on the fire that occurred at 348 West Main. And yeah, there's a lot of things that happened in the city of Marshall this year. Largest snowstorm in history in April, flooding in July, and then the fire that took place. So, you know, granted, we did kind of joke a little bit about City Hall, but one of the things that I was able to do was I did visit with one of the business owners in that building the day afterwards, and she allowed me to look at the damage to their business. And she also just described kind of some of the emotions she went through. And it kind of made you think that, you know, there's loss there, even though it's a business and life wasn't at stake. In this particular case, I think it was traumatic for them. Obviously, they're concerned about losing business and then just recovering from it. So one of the things that I did is I did call Red Cross, who tends to kind of focus in on residential or disaster type situations, but what they did is they offered to have some counseling provided to any of the individuals or businesses that were affected. I wasn't able to get them every single business that's in that building. I'm still working on that, but they did make some connections, and I think Red Cross left a voice message today just kind of saying they really appreciate getting that connection established. So I do want to report on that. And then finally, I get to do a lot of fun things in this job, and sometimes not so much fun things. But today I was invited to participate in a leadership panel following the Everyday Leader seminar that was put on in Marshall. And a big promoter of this seminar is Ralco. There's a lot of other sponsors as well. But Glenn Bader, who's head of their communications team, invited me to be a part of that. And I'm just really appreciative of the job I get to do, and this was a fun thing to do today. So that was my report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon. Jason?
Thank you. I can offer a quick update on our construction projects that we still have kind of opened up. The Michigan Superior project, we started concrete paving this week. You'll notice if you drive by, the main line 24 feet of Michigan Road is paved in its entirety, with exception to some openings that we left for Schwann's for access. They should pave Superior Road tomorrow, the center 24 feet of Superior Road tomorrow, if things go well. So that's nice to see pavement on the ground out there. Saratoga, they're finishing roadway prep between A Street and Schwann's Corporate. So we're working on some curb and gutter, sidewalk, driveways, and roadway prep. So that's getting close, and we're starting to near the final days. We still have a few weeks of work yet, but you know, weather permitting, hopefully we can get that wrapped up soon. And then Commerce Industrial Park, generally completed. The only work remaining is curb and gutter, street paving, and pond tiling in the northeast basin. So that's also coming to a close. They're impacted a little bit with scheduling, like every other contractor right now. All the wet times has pushed everybody's timelines back, so we're just sort of waiting on their subcontractors to come in and complete some work. So,
Jason, I've been asked this by the business owners along 23. What is the status of the J-turns along 23?
You know, I wish I had a specific update for you. I know that we're sharing a concrete contractor on that project, and they're paving out there as well. So that's going forward. I don't have a specific timeline for you, but that's moving as well. So,
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
May I piggyback on that? During the summer, when we had conversations with MnDOT, there was a very firm assurance that it would be done, quote, by the end of the construction season, unquote. And there's a little bit of a push. What does that mean? And they didn't really want to give a time, but they eventually volunteered the first week in October. Of course, we've had rain. We have still damp soil and all the rest that slowed that down, which we understand. Is there a point at which conditions could make that project unfinishable until spring? Could we get into such a scenario?
I don't see that happening. I think they'll get it done, and I can reach out tomorrow to MnDOT to check in on the status of that and send out a notice.
That would be good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That would be helpful.
Okay, anything else, Jason?
No.
And Dennis?
Well, and to further piggyback on that, the city and MMU recently received notice from MnDOT on eminent domain acquisition of additional property for the J turn on the 23 County Road 7 interchange that is planned for the future. So that's in the hopper as well for next year's construction. And also on behalf of the workforce and the residents of the City of Marshall, I did attend that Sunrise Court hearing that was held last week, and then the decision was issued from the District Court Judge Zimmer, basically enforcing the need to repair the boiler system within that property, and all the residents had to move while that is undertaken. So that does impact several local, employers. Their workforce is kind of in flux right now. So just attended to see what's going on on behalf of the workforce out there. So, nothing else. Thank you.
Move then to agenda item number 30, which is the administrative reports for your information. Agenda item number 31 is the information items. Agenda item number 32 is the upcoming meetings. Any questions on any of those items? If not, agenda item number 33 is to consider adjourning. I would entertain a motion.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
Really
Motion
cut.
passes.
We're gonna have to stay around.